So we'll continue our discussion about encephalitis, specifically bacterial encephalitis, wherein it is caused due to a primary condition like tuberculosis or neurosyphilis. Now, yesterday we discussed how from a secondary condition it can lead to bacterial encephalitis, where an implantation is occurring, or from local extension from the meningitis it is leading to encephalitis, or from hematogenous spread it is leading to encephalitis, infection occurring in the blood when reaching the brain parenchyma and infecting there. Now, coming to tuberculosis, see, tuberculosis can cause a direct involvement as well, both tuberculosis and neurosyphilis. Tuberculosis में Mycobacterium tuberculosis and this thing in syphilis, it is Treponema pallidum. It is a spirochete bacteria. Now, whenever a patient has, these are the two primary involvements, okay, wherein they can primarily cause encephalitis. मीनिंग अब ट्यूबरकुलोसिस भी हुआ समझो. Primary involvement means that instead of directly causing problems in your lung, or before it causes problems, significant problems in your lungs, or specifically before showing clinical symptoms in your lungs, there will be clinical symptoms related to your CNS. Okay, there will be bigger problems in your CNS. That is how primary involvement is told. Primary involvement through tuberculosis. नाउ अगर ट्यूबरकुलोसिस हुआ एंड ट्यूबरकुलोसिस की वजह से encephalitis हो रहा, then you will see a particular mass called tuberculoma. Okay, now tuberculoma as such is a proper big mass. Okay, it is basically formed because of dissemination of TB. Now you can have a solitary tuberculoma occurring in your brain, or you can have multiples of them, small multiples of them, or you can have a single large tuberculoma. Now this will be something like a fibrous capsule, uh, technically like an abscess, but this will have caseating necrosis at its center, and you will see a granulomatous reaction occurring around that central necrosis. All right, that is tuberculoma. Sometimes in advanced cases, this tuberculoma will undergo calcification. So I'll repeat once again. Whenever tuberculosis is occurring as a primary cause, all right, in the sense that before having pulmonary symptoms, the patient is showing cerebral symptoms, specifically CNS symptoms. At that point of time, we'll tell that this person has what you call encephalitis primarily due to tuberculosis. Okay. In that sense, the patient will generally present with small structures that are present inside the brain, which can be single or multiple. They can occur solitary or they can occur multiple, and those structures are called tuberculomas. Okay. Now, this tuberculoma will have a fibrous capsule, all right, and in the middle you will have caseating necrosis. So, cheese-like necrosis will occur. Let's suppose this is the area of cheese-like necrosis. You will have a zone of gliosis. One second. Right, thoda chota karenge. Right. You will have a zone of gliosis there, and you will see a typical granulomatous reaction. So granuloma cells come, and because of excessive inflammation, as a result of repair, granulomatous reaction occurs. The same thing happens here. Granuloma cells will invade the area, and they will be present around this area of necrosis. So let's suppose this is the layer of granulomatous tissue that is coming into picture. Okay. Along with this, you will see a zone of gliosis that is surrounding the whole of the tuberculoma. So there will be inflammation of glial cells around this tuberculoma itself. So the green line that I'm drawing represents a zone of gliosis, which is encompassing or encircling that tuberculoma. In advanced cases, as it keeps on going for a long period of time, and if it is not treated properly, calcification will start occurring. All right, and the whole tuberculoma will start hardening. So that is what happens in tuberculosis. Now, coming to syphilis. Syphilis is caused by Treponema pallidum. It's a spirochete. Now, this fellow is a special bacteria. What it will do is it will cause slow degeneration. Especially, it will cause problems in your posterior nerve roots, spinal cord ke posterior roots, and posterior column of the spinal cord. So towards the back, okay, you have both anterior roots and posterior roots, right? This fellow will mainly cause problems in your posterior roots and posterior column of the back, vertical of your spinal cord. See, syphilis causing encephalitis is more common in patients who have AIDS, especially patients who have who are immunocompromised, commonly seen in AIDS. Okay, nowadays syphilis is not seen as such, especially neurosyphilis is not seen as such. Neurosyphilis is a complication of syphilis. Okay, you will have primary. आप लोगों को syphilis से पढ़ा है? Okay, in any case, padhai nahi padhai. Syphilis basically occurs as primary syphilis, then secondary syphilis, then it will go into latent stage. After that will come, complicated syphilis, tertiary syphilis. In tertiary syphilis, you will start having all of these symptoms. Neurosyphilis is part of tertiary syphilis, comes after latency. In any case, यहाँ पर there is proper neuronal involvement and it is specifically targeting the posterior chain of your spinal cord. The result of that will be the patient will lose sense of vibration. The person will lose sense of proprioception. There will be loss of proprioception. Pain sensation is lost. Vibration sense is lost. Proprioception is the sense where you are able to recognize where in space your body is. So for example, I tell you to lift your hand. Okay, you need to know where your hand is first of all before you can lift it to some other location. Let's suppose you are already you are raising your hands above your head. I cannot ask you to lift your hands anymore. Okay, so you already have the knowledge of where in space your body parts are. Okay, especially your limbs. That is proprioception. Okay, the sense of your body in a sense. यहाँ पर because of damage to the posterior roots and posterior column, that sense is lost. So the patient will not be able to think about it this way. If they do not know where their limbs are, especially if their spatial recognition is lost, they'll not be able to move about normally. Okay, they cannot walk. They will have ataxia. They cannot coordinate their movements and they will generally fall down. Okay, muscle and joint coordination is lost. That particular condition is called locomotor ataxia or tabes dorsalis. Okay, neurosyphilis का complication है वो. So encephalitis where it is being caused because of neurosyphilis. Okay. Neurosyphilis causing encephalitis. Okay. Encephalitis is simply infection of your brain. Now it is because of syphilis. उसको neurosyphilis बोल रहे अपन. Okay. This will lead to loss of sense of vibration, pain, and proprioception. Okay, your pain sensation is also very important because that will let you know, that is one of the first what you call alarm clocks in your body, letting you know that there is something wrong in some place. Now let's suppose you are having what you call leg pain or knee pain. Okay, chronically for a long period of time you are suffering from knee pain, then you will go and get it checked by a doctor. Okay, pain is an indicator that there is something wrong and you need to get it checked. Okay, or you might be walking wrong, or you might be impacting your knee in a weird angle or things like that. This will lead to especially loss of proprioception, where you are not able to spatially recognize the location of your limbs, loss of coordination of muscles and joints. Okay. Now this loss of coordination of muscles and joints will lead to locomotor ataxia. Ataxia is a condition in which the patient will not be able to walk properly, specifically because of lack of coordination. Now locomotor ataxia is also called tabes dorsalis. Tabes dorsalis literally means wasting of the back of your spinal cord. Okay. In any case, you can remember it as locomotor ataxia as well. So this is what happens in neurosyphilis. This is common in AIDS patient. Okay, if someone is immunocompromised, or specifically in case of AIDS, that is when a patient will develop neurosyphilis leading to encephalitis, and all of this will occur. Now coming to viral encephalitis, this is about bacterial encephalitis. Now viral encephalitis, viruses in general, they can cause two things. They can cause aseptic meningitis, or they can cause viral encephalitis. Sometimes they will cause both together. That is called meningoencephalitis. So a virus, I'll just write it this way. Virus is capable of two things. Okay. The first thing it can cause is aseptic or acute lymphocytic meningitis जो बोलते हैं aseptic meningitis, ठीक है, or it can cause viral encephalitis, inflammation of your parenchyma of your brain because of a viral infection. Sometimes both of them are clubbed together. It will cause both aseptic meningitis as well as viral encephalitis. That condition is called meningoencephalitis. All right. So this is what a virus can cause. Now, most viral infections of your CNS will be secondary. Okay, it is basically where a person has, extraneural viral replication, meaning outside your brain there is viral replication, there is a viral disease, you will have some manifestations of a viral disease, so on and so forth. Later on there will be vertical neurological involvement where nervous system is getting infected by the virus and it is progressing. Now, depending on how, see, there are several viruses that can cause encephalitis. If we specifically talk about encephalitis itself, there are several viruses that can cause. Now, depending on how they are entering, there are different types of viruses. How they enter into the body and finally cause encephalitis. If let's suppose it is entering through through skin, okay, skin and mucous membrane. In this case, more often than not, the virus is HSV, herpes simplex virus, specifically HSV2, or it might be varicella zoster. Okay, that is also a form of herpes virus. So these two are generally are entering through the body, entering into the patient's body through skin and mucous membrane. If it is entering through GIT, it will be an enterovirus, including polio. Polio virus can also enter this way through GIT. Okay. And then if it is, let's suppose arthropod bite. If an arthropod comes and bites you, transmitting the virus, it will generally be arboviruses. Now, arboviruses are several. You will have Zika, West Nile. We discussed the same in meningitis as well. There are several. Chikungunya, वो पूरे arboviruses है. All right. Dengue. Then we have transplacental virus. Okay, transplacental transmission is basically from a mother to a child. This will be CMV, cytomegalovirus. Then there are viruses that transmit through body fluids, specifically AIDS. So, or HIV. Let me put it this way. HIV virus causing AIDS. Now, sometimes there are a few exceptions as well. For example, rabies. Rabies virus, what it will do is it will cause rabies to the patient, and later on it will literally use peripheral nerves that are present in your the PNS. It will pass through those nerves and reach your CNS. Okay, it will literally pick one of the nerves, it will get into the nerve, it will pass through the whole of the nerve, it will pass through the axon and all of that, and it will come into contact with your spinal cord, wherein it is reaching your CNS and going all the way up to your brain, leading to encephalitis. Okay, that is how rabies virus will work. In any case, most of these viruses that I've mentioned, including rabies, they will cause an acute viral infection. Okay, meaning a viral infection that is occurring very, very quickly, very acute infection, which needs to be treated very quickly. In some cases, especially in some cases of HIV, in some cases of measles, okay, it will be a slow virus. There are some special viruses as well. There is what you call JC virus. We'll discuss about JC virus as well. There are a few viruses that will be chronic. slow rather than chronic, I would say. They have a long, very long latency period. They will stay in your body for a very long period of time, and they will develop very, very slowly. The effect of that will be, you will see encephalitis, but you will see special forms of encephalitis. Okay, you have a few of them in your syllabus, specifically HIV encephalopathy, progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, and spongiform encephalopathy. We'll discuss that. What is that? Now, coming to pathological changes, see, pathological changes or histological changes that you see inside a viral infection, they will vary depending on different type of viruses. There will be different presentations that you see, but as such, there are a few common symptoms that you see in a patient who has a viral encephalitis attack. Okay, depending on the virus, there might be some specific other morphological features and pathophysiological features, but there are a few common features. Now, those common features, first of all, will include parenchymal infiltrate. Now, parenchymal infiltrate, this literally your brain parenchyma is getting infiltrated by, especially near your blood vessels, perivascular location बोलते हैं उसको, near your blood vessels, by inflammatory cells. So your macrophages, your plasma cells, lymphocytes, okay, all of them will start invading the area near your blood vessels. So that is the first thing that you see. Then you will see clusters of microglial cells. Okay, especially these microglial cells will be accompanied by neuronophagia. Neuronophagia is basically damage to your neurons or CNS, specifically your neurons, because of phagocytes. Now, microglial cells, if you remember, are literally the same lineage as monocyte macrophage. They are the macrophages of your CNS, okay, macrophages of your brain. Okay, they are a type of glial cells which act as phagocytes. Now, यहाँ पर neuronophagia इसलिए होता because neurons are literally getting phagocytosed. Okay, they will get eaten up. That is happening because of microglial cells. That is happening because of macrophages that are entering in the area. That is happening because of inflammatory reaction, all of that. So you will see clusters of microglial cells along with neuronophagia being what do you call, phagocytic damage to your neurons. And you will see both intranuclear, okay, intranuclear inclusions are basically small protein bodies. Okay, intranuclear inclusions, as the name suggests, inside the nucleus you will see small dots of proteins that are accumulating in the nucleus in most of the viruses. Now, this occurs in most viral infections or most viruses, most viral encephalitis. Sometimes, especially in case of rabies, you will see intracytoplasmic bodies. One second. Intracytoplasmic inclusions we बोल सकते हैं लोगों को. These are called Negri bodies. Okay. In most of the viruses, it will be an intranuclear inclusion, meaning proteins. No, inclusion bodies are basically small proteinaceous structures. Okay. Now, in most viruses, you will see intranuclear inclusions where inside the nucleus itself there is a protein. In rabies, these will be intracytoplasmic bodies. So inside the what do you call, or you can also call them cytoplasmic lesions, easier. One second. Hello. Cytoplasmic things. Cytoplasmic inclusions, where these cytoplasmic inclusions will be called Negri bodies. All right. They will be purplish in color. In any case, these are the morphological features that you see. Now, coming to specific types of encephalopathy, especially the slow ones, we'll come to specific type of viral encephalopathy. First of all, HIV encephalopathy. Okay, this is also called AIDS dementia complex. All right. Dementia is a condition in which there will be a sharp decline in cognitive function of the brain. Okay, the total cognitive function of the brain, the thinking capacity of the brain, all of that will decrease. Okay. Now, HIV encephalopathy, this occurs late in the course of AIDS. Now, clinically, only 25% of AIDS patients will show this, meaning 1 out of 4 people who have AIDS, they will have the symptoms of HIV encephalopathy. But if you actually perform autopsies, you will see that patients who had AIDS for a long period of time, almost 80 to 90% of those patients had what you call encephalopathy. It is just that they did not present it clinically. All right, I'll repeat that point again. If I take 100 patients of AIDS, okay, and they are what you call old patients, in the sense that they have been suffering from AIDS for a long period of time. Rather than old, I would say they've been suffering from AIDS for a long period of time. Let's suppose 20 years, okay, 20-25 years. So यहाँ पर क्या होता, out of these 100, only 25 will show symptoms, okay, clinical symptoms where you can actually treat them. But if you actually perform an autopsy after they die, you cut open their body and see, you will find that this is 25% of AIDS patients showing encephalitis, okay, or encephalopathy. You will find that once you perform autopsy in these patients, almost 80 to 90% of the total number of AIDS patients, they will have HIV encephalopathy. It is just that the rest of them have not shown clinical symptoms for you to treat or for the doctor to treat. All right, so it is very, very common in AIDS for a patient to develop HIV encephalopathy over time. All right, now pathologically, the changes that occur inside your brain will be that subcortical area of your brain, subcortical structures, they will undergo gliosis. So glial cells will undergo inflammation there. You will have a lot of multinucleate giant cells invading the area. Okay, specifically it will cause multinucleate giant cell encephalitis, right? So the things that you see, primary symptom of this is the patient obviously will have AIDS, okay, and there will be dementia. Okay, these two should be present for it to be classified as HIV encephalopathy. Along with this, in subcortical area, so beneath the cortex, subcortical area, you will see gliosis, you will see multinucleate giant cell encephalitis, okay, and you will see vacuolar myelopathy. Vacuolar myelopathy means your spinal cord is getting damaged, and that damage is because of the presence of vacuoles. Okay, there is spinal cord damage, and you will be able to see vacuoles inside the spinal cord. All right. Now, location may vary a lot, but what is consistent is that you will be able to see vacuoles present inside the the spinal cord and the attachment site of spinal cord in your skull. So this is HIV encephalopathy. Then we come to the next disease, progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy. Okay. Now, this is also called PML. Okay, literally PML because of progressive multifocal myelopathy, leukoencephalopathy, PML. Now, as the name suggests, this is a progressive disease occurring at several sites. Multifocal का मतलब there are several sites of foci, ठीक है, and it is causing encephalopathy because of leukocytes, ठीक है. That is literally the breakdown. Now, this is caused by a very specific kind of virus, a slow virus called JC virus. Now, इसका नाम JC इसलिए रखे because this is basically based on, or it is named after the first patient of PML. Okay, his name was John Cunningham. That person, उसका नाम के basis पे, based on his initials, this virus was named. Now, there are no specific medications for JC virus. Okay, in all of these flow viruses that you will see, there is no proper treatment altogether. There might be symptomatic relief that you can give the patient, but other than that, there is no treatment, and the patient will invariably die. All right, it's just that they might die a little later or sooner. As such, if a patient has PML, the average lifespan of that patient after diagnosis will be from 6 months to 2 years. Okay, maximum they'll live, generally they will die under 2 years once they are diagnosed, or minimum 6 months they can live, and after 6 months they will die. That is an average. You can give antiretroviral treatment for HIV, but it will only serve as a symptomatic aid. You'll only be able to control HIV, but not exactly PML. Okay, you cannot reverse neuronal damage. This will generally occur in immunocompromised patients, PML. Okay, the patient might even have CMV, HIV or toxoplasmosis specifically. उन लोगों के अंदर PML होता. Now the lesions that you see, so it is characteristic of immunocompromised patients, occurs in. Please do not get confused between immunocompromised and immunosuppressed. ठीक है, immunosuppressed patients वो रहते हैं जिनको आप drugs देके suppress कर रहे हैं immunity. All right, you are giving drugs to them to suppress their immunity. There are certain conditions in which you give immunosuppressants. You give it in cancer, you give it in certain what you call conditions like psoriasis, basically autoimmune conditions where their immunity is damaging their body. In that condition, you will give immunosuppressants. Those patients are called immunosuppressed. Immunocompromised patients are those who are innately having a compromised immunity. Their immunity is not working essentially, all right, or it is not up to the mark. उन लोगों को immunocompromised बोलते. Suppressing immunity is something that you do externally. Immunocompromised patients are compromised without you intervening, all right, or without a doctor intervening. Now, the lesions or the pathological changes that you see is that you will see a lot of lesions which have a focal gelatinous, irregular gelatinous area, and you will generally see these lesions present at the junction of gray and white matter. So, inside your cortex, in your brain, at the periphery there is the what you call gray matter, in the center there is white matter. At the periphery of those of that gray and white matter, you will be able to see these gelatinous lesions. So there will be irregularly spread gelatinous area. So I'll just write it down. Lesions are commonly seen in at the junction of gray and white areas. Okay, other than that, you will see lesions are focal and irregular gelatinous area. So that area wherever the lesion is occurring, it will become irregularly gelatinous and it will occur in different foci. All right. Now this specifically happens because there is focal demyelination. So three characteristic features that you see in this is there is focal demyelination. Okay. The focal area wherever it is affecting, that will get demyelinated. You will see lipid laden macrophages. So macrophages tend to consume a lot of lipids and they will stay in that area. At the center of the foci, you'll be able to see a lot of macrophages who have lipids inside them. And you will see enlarged oligodendroglial nuclei. Enlarged oligodendroglial nuclei. Okay, oligodendrocytes are a type of what you call glial cells which are responsible for myelination of your CNS neurons. All right, you will see enlarged oligodendronuclei, and you will see purple viral inclusions present at the lesion, periphery of the lesion. You will be able to see purplish colored viral inclusions. So that is about PML. Now coming to last type, spongiform encephalopathy. This is also called mad cow disease, or it is also called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. CRE. Creutzfeldt. Okay, so these are the two names. इसकी वजह से इसको CJD भी बोलते हैं, क्रुट्सफेल्ड याकोब डिजीज है ना, CJD. Okay, CJ and D. Spongiform encephalopathy. Now, in this, what you see is that it is caused by prion. It is a prion disease. It is caused by prion proteins. Now, prions are a very different type of. They are not exactly a life form. Technically, you can put them as a life form. They are not like bacteria and viruses. They are literally a bunch of proteins. These proteins can be transmitted like viruses and bacteria, but they do not have, a cell structure. They will not have a proper living organism like. They will not look like a living organism. They simply are like proteins, but these are proteins that can cause damage to your body. It can cause a disease. Okay, that is why this is a protein. It's a prion disease. Now, prions, what they do is, the main distinction between a bacteria, virus, and this thing is that they will not have any nucleic acid. There will be no DNA and RNA, and they're generally formed from normal mammalian proteins. So some mammalian proteins which have what do you call, the sequence is improper, or basically there is some mutation because of which prions are formed. Now those prion proteins can infect like bacteria and viruses, and they can cause several problems. One problem is spongiform encephalopathy. There is no cure for spongiform encephalopathy, or specifically there is no cure for any prion disease as such. Now, transmission generally occurs iatrogenically, wherein the patient is what you call, a surgeon is transplanting tissue from an infected person to this person, leading to transmission of prions, or it can be because of consumption of BSE. ठीक है, bovine spongiform encephalopathy बोलते. There will be a few cattle, and that cattle is getting infected by prions. If a person is consuming that cattle, that is when they will get what you call spongiform encephalopathy, or they will get prions transmitted into them. That is why it is called mad cow disease. All right. Now, in this what you call spongiform encephalopathy, you will see that the patient is having rapid progressive dementia. So sharp, rapid decline in their cognitive function, along with myoclonus. Now, myoclonus are sudden, erratic muscle spasms. Okay, so myoclonus occurs in these patients, and you will see lesions. You will generally see brain atrophy occurring. Okay, CJD is fatal. Generally, within 7 months after diagnosis, the patient will die, and the morphological changes, they are very, very rapid to even notice. Okay, the changes in your brain will be so rapid that they are not exactly noticeable. Before, let's suppose you notice it once at the start of the disease, maybe in 1 week or two it will be completely different. That is why it's not consistent. What you do see is that brain atrophy occurs. As the disease progresses, brain atrophy will occur, and you will see small round vacuoles present inside the neurons. Okay, that is a characteristic feature or hallmark feature of spongiform encephalopathy. The patient will have small round vacuoles present in their neuronal cells. All right. Then we have the last two types, fungal and protozoal encephalitis. This will conclude our viral encephalitis, and we have fungal and protozoal. Now, fungal and protozoal are not as common. They are caused due to certain fungi and protozoa. So, fungal encephalitis especially occurs in immunocompromised patients. The patient will generally have a fungal disease. वहाँ से fungal encephalitis होता. It can happen in an AIDS patient or lymphoma patient or cancer patient. Generally, it is a fungus like Candida, Mucor, yeah, blastomyces, yeah, aspergillus that is causing this. Okay, the patient will generally have a fungal chronic meningitis. They will have encephalitis and vasculitis. So, a combination में होता अगर fungal encephalitis हुआ तो. If it is a protozoal disease, it might be basically the patient has a protozoal disease, like they might have malaria, they might have toxoplasmosis, amoebiasis, or cysticercosis, any of them, and it is leading to encephalitis. All right. So that is about protozoal and fungal infections. With that, we have completed our